Now it's 11:06 on WSIC News Radio. You're listening to
Yes.
We're Just Saying with Senator Vickie, Sawyer, and David. Like to be part of our show, 844 Studio 4. We are streaming live on the WSIC News website, Facebook page, YouTube page, X, formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn. This week, we have back the star of the show, the one we all miss, the one we all want
whatever.
here, Senator Sawyer. So good to have you back. Flying solo without you just wasn't the same. We'll ignore the spike in ratings. But when I was flying solo, I really feel like it was just a fluke. Honestly, I do.
So, as Fragile, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be back. First
Thank
of
you
all,
for having you back on your own show.
Yes, I'm very grateful to be back. And so, as fragile as my ego is, when you told me that I waited for you to kind of be busy, and I went into Bill, who's the producer, and I asked privately, was it better without me?
It was not. It decidedly was not.
I'm a little, so you can, an inside peek into a politician, and we just have fragile egos sometimes. So I was a little concerned that you had more fun without me, but we did have a big name on the line.
We do?
You did, well, you did.
Oh, I did have a big name.
Yes,
Yes,
you
we had
had-
Congressman Patrick McHenry.
Yes, you did. So I was grateful for him to call in.
And then we had an even bigger name at the end of the show when you called in.
Oh, yes.
So and
yes.
obviously that's when the spike honestly happened.
Is that what it was?
That's what it was. When you came back in,
Yeah.
that's when it jumped back up again.
Well, I'm glad. Last week is behind us. We have the budget of North Carolina passed. It was a little overdue, but actually almost right on time. I feel like it was, we were all a little 10 months pregnant, as they say.
And then some.
And then some. So that has been passed. We'll go through some of that on our show, and we'll talk about some highlights, but just glad to be back and talk about all things Raleigh. And then we have something new that comes on. It's supposed to be once every 10 years, but in North Carolina, it's once every 2 years. And that's redistricting.
There you did Groundhog Day again with redistricting.
Yeah.
So drawing maps. So have you got your markers out? Have you been like putting up little squiggly marks around our area to make sure that you're carving out the best spots for you?
Yeah, right. No, I am not allowed in those rooms. So I have nothing to do with anything redistricting. I go and vote on the final maps when they are presented in front of me. So that is and that is upon our chairs that are the redistricting committee who work with that. So we are currently doing a listening tour across North Carolina. I think that coast, maybe today is the last day or they're hearing. And then I believe we start seeing the maps in October.
In October, very nice. But you did say we do finally have a budget. We talked briefly a little bit last week when you called in, but a lot of good stuff in this budget for Iredell County, for the state. You did a good job bringing home the bacon, so to speak, as a representative of our area, which is your job, by the way.
Yeah, and we did get some good stuff in for Cornelius as well. But when I was sharing the information with some of our folks in the party, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? You're conservative, and pork and earmarks are kind of one of those things that dirty subject that nobody wants to talk about. But if you're up there and that type of money is getting around, if you're not standing there asking and advocating for your district, you're doing your district a disservice. There's a lot of good things in here that simply are just going to enhance what local folks are going to be able to do. So I'm excited for that. But just remember, there's this thing that we do in state of North Carolina between the House and Senate, and we put together what's called a spending limit. TABOR. So in other words, it's basically cost plus inflation plus, I can't remember the whole thing, but basically it says we're only going to spend this much. And at the very beginning of the spending process, they set that limit. There's an agreement between the House and the Senate. So as they fund everything else that we have to fund, the difference between what should be funded and what that number is, that's where you see some of these local investments and projects come through.
Absolutely. Well, and it's funny because I think sometimes we sometimes forget that, okay, so the Republicans in the General Assembly have created a business and tax environment in North Carolina that makes it, number one state in the country for business. We have seen dramatic growth in the state in jobs, in residences, in commercial, and all those people coming in, all those jobs they bring in taxes and sales taxes, and so we continually to see an increase in tax revenue while still lowering the personal income tax rate. So it's actually working. We're bringing in more tax revenue while lowering your personal income tax rate. Thus, we would like to spend on some critical things like roads
Right.
and schools and scholarships and infrastructure and water and sewer.
Yeah.
That's the idea. People love to zero in. Look, you spent this much more. Well, how much more did we bring in?
Right.
Right? We brought in, 35% more in revenue, but we're only spending about 15% more because of taper. I'm throwing those numbers, but the general idea. So in essence, we are spending far less than we're bringing in, which means the formula's working. So if you're going to complain about government spending in your district, hey, remember, we're still bringing in a lot. We could be spending so much more and still be in the green. Still be in the green. So perspective, folks, perspective.
Right. We are continuing to lower your personal income tax, which is a commitment that the Republican General Assembly made when they took over 10 years ago. Is it 10 years, 12 years ago now?
Yeah, about 12 years ago.
And so that is going to continue to go forward. And there are triggers in this budget. So if we do continue to have over collection of taxes, then those tax cuts will be accelerated. So I don't know that we'll ever get to zero. That's tough. That's tough to do. But I mean, Tennessee's done it. Florida's done it. So it's not unheard of. But I definitely feel like that we should not be taxing folks on the money that they make, maybe the money that they spend, and that's where North Carolina is going through.
Well, exactly, and then you at least have some choice, in how much tax you're going to pay by how much you spend, right? So it's like you don't want your tax burden to go up from a spending use tax standpoint. Don't spend as much, but to be fair, we like it when you spend more.
Yeah,
we like it when you do that. It's what keeps the economy going. It's the circle of life, folks. It's the economic circle of life.
It is. So so the nice part about this budget is that I can see that folks who are complaining about some of it really are complaining about things that aren't that important, but more like showstoppers. So, I mean, we have made some of the most critical investments in water and sewer infrastructure across North Carolina. Huge amount of money there. There is more money going into education, despite what you're going to hear. And I want to talk about the opportunity scholarships after the break. What that means is the voucher program that has been expanded in North Carolina. And I want to talk about my personal progression through the whole thought, because I wasn't where I am today when I first got elected and thought about these things through.
Wait. So just so you breaking news, an elected official evolved in their position to come around on something. News at 11, folks. I mean, we're breaking things all over here. That happened with you?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. Education is actually a big thing. When you start learning about things from both sides of the perspective, then you can understand what maybe the General Assembly has been trying to do all along. And so I'm very excited about this budget and where we're going. And I think school choice is a big deal.
Absolutely. Well, and you mentioned water and sewer infrastructure money. I believe town of Troutman got upwards of, close to $13-14 million for critical water and infrastructure. And given the growth that Troutman is now seeing, and a lot of people don't realize Troutman has to get their water either from Mooresville or from Statesville or maybe a little bit in Carolina Water, a little bit in Aqua, but they are reliant on other places to bring their water in. So the ability to upgrade their infrastructure is going to be huge for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And this gives them a help and a shot in the arm that they needed to get ahead of the growth. I heard someone say the other day, like, why didn't you plan for all this water and wastewater and all of this growth? Well, you know what? If y'all would have called us 15 years ago, we may could have done something about it.
Exactly.
If we'd have known that North Carolina was going to be the hotbed for growth 15 years ago, maybe we could have actually planned a little bit better. But
Hindsight's
we're glad you're
always
here.
2020.
We're glad you're here. We're just all going to work through it together.
Absolutely. You're listening to We're Just Saying on WSIC News Radio. We'll be right back.
There's more We're Just Saying with NC Senator Vickie Sawyer on the way from the new 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. This Friday, the Steel Wheels are performing at Kane Center for the Arts in Cornelius. Come listen to the storytelling abilities of the Steel Wheels through Americana and folk music. Doors open at 7 and the show starts at 8. The Steel Wheels. This Friday, canearts.org. That's CAIN arts.org. Start your engines, racing fans. The Bank of America Roval 400 is back to Charlotte, Sunday, October 8th, starting at 2 p.m. the Bank of America Roval 400 at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Get your tickets before it's too late. Visit charlottemotorspeedway.com. No time to get to the apple picking at Kerrigan Farms? Apple picking ends September 30th. But you have your chance to go pumpkin picking. Starting September 30th, you can experience the pumpkin patch at Kerrigan Farms. Book your experience now at kerriganfarms.com. The All-American Dog Show is this Sunday in Cornelius, 2 until 5 p.m. Bring your furry friends with you. Come find out who has the fluffiest coat and see the cutest puppy in all of Cornelius. And be sure to come by the WSIC tent at the All-American Dog Show happening at Robbins Park in Cornelius this Sunday. For more info, visit cornelius.org. Have an event you would like to tell people about? Yard sales, estate sales, and everything in between? Visit WSICnews.com and click on events to submit your event today.
The Renaissance Festival is back! Saturdays and Sundays, September 30th through November 19th. Eat, drink, be merry at the Renaissance Festival. Tickets available online only at renfestinfo.com while supplies last.
And now for a look at your weather forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. Mostly cloudy skies out there this morning, but it will gradually become sunny by the afternoon. The high temperature today is expected to be near 80. Heading through the evening hours, mostly clear skies, and it'll cool off as we get into the overnight hours. Your low temperature tonight, 59. This is your weather forecast from the WSIC Weather Center.
Now, more We're Just Saying with North Carolina Senator Vickie Sawyer on the new 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Is that your favorite one?
Yeah.
Welcome back to We're Just Saying on WSIC News Radio with Senator Vickie Sawyer and David. If you'd like to be part of our show, 844-STUDIO-4. We are still streaming live on the WSIC News Facebook page, website, X, formerly known as Twitter, and the YouTubes and the LinkedIns.
Yes.
So we are everywhere.
Yes.
So before the break, we were talking about the budget, and you had brought up the opportunity scholarships.
Yes.
And so, for people who aren't familiar, these are scholarships that can go to parents to assist with educational choices outside of traditional public schools. And I know that
That
you
was
said
very educational lingo there.
I've got
That
the
was
lingo.
very politician of you.
I was very prepped. I
How
had
about
prepped
this?
myself.
The money follows the child.
The money follows the child. Okay, that is far more
Okay.
succinct than the way I sounded very educated and enlightened. You sounded very straightforward and the way it was supposed to be. Yeah, that's why you're a good politician. But tell us about the opportunity scholarships.
Oh, yeah. So the Opportunity Scholarships are it's a nice name to say voucher. And what this does is it allows families who choose not to go to traditional public ed or charter schools, which are also public schools, to go to a private school. Now, normally so I have one child who graduated from private school or is graduating from a private school because of COVID. That's when we moved because they were still open. And I had another one who graduated from public. So I feel like I've got a good handle on both of those. So for a family that doesn't have a lot of money, private schools are not an option. So they have been an option for a long time in North Carolina through this program. So now, if you don't make a lot of money, so in other words, if you could qualify for free and reduced lunch, then your family is eligible for a voucher to go to a private school for $7,213 in next year. So it actually says fiscal year 23-24. So there's a lot and I think there's a group called Thales Academy that actually has figured out how to educate a child for that amount of money a year.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of great private schools that are taking this opportunity scholarship and doing wonderful things with it. Now, so if you are a family that say that $7,000 isn't a lot of money to, but yet you're still paying for private school, what we did in this budget is we extended it to all families. So it doesn't mean if you make less than a certain amount, it means whatever you make, but you don't get the full $7,000. So say you're Donald Trump and Barron wants to go to Charlotte Catholic. Let's just say that. So he would only be reimbursed up to $4,328 a year. So it's not the full scholarship. Now, these are separate funds outside of traditional public ed. There's a separate scholarship, and any unused money at the end of the year goes back to public ed. That's something that they don't talk about a lot because
So
that's
to be clear, these opportunity scholarships are it is out of a it is not you're not taking from Peter to pay Paul.
right.
It is not taking down traditional school money. It is a separate pool of money that provides over for for these opportunity
Right.
scholarships.
Now, that's going to put some people's hair on fire from traditional public ed. And this is where I said I started it one way and became another. Because remember, I'm trained as a teacher. I was a terrible teacher. God bless you, teachers. You apparently need patience to be a teacher, and I don't have much of that. So I was not great in the classroom, but but also a public school advocate, and that's how I actually became a state senator. Is working in David, how I met you, is working for public schools, and public school funding. So they'll say, but yes, once you move that child away, then the state and local supplement that we get to educate that child will be away from us. So in other words, if so when my youngest child went to school, the state would give up to like $7,000 to go to Iredell Statesville schools. Now that she goes to Statesville Christian, they don't get that $7,000, and so that's what they're saying. It's taking money away from public ed, and I get that. And so that's a valid
But
valid
to be
thing,
fair, you're also taking the child
right?
away from there. So let's say that child had never been a member of that school, that money never would have been there to begin with. So
Correct.
clarity is important here.
Yes, then that's a fair point. Then you don't have the cost of educating the kids.
Exactly.
Right? So the kid's not there, then it doesn't cost you to educate the kids. So anyway, so there's some other stuff. And my true thought when I was, as I started out with this, as a kid who public schools basically saved her life. It wasn't for my teachers and my schools and my grandparents, I would be in a ditch somewhere. I really did worry about having this, they talk about white flight or rich flight. I don't even think it has to do with color anymore. I think it has to do with economic levels, And so, I worried about like, well, are you going to just keep a certain class of people in public ed? But then you start looking at the opportunity scholarship and where it's succeeding, and it's not in white areas or rich areas. It's actually in inner cities where people who live in the cities in North Carolina who their kids are tracking to failing schools, they want an option. And they can't afford to pay that $7,000 a year. So this opportunity scholarship allows them to have an opportunity to get a different education for their child in a private school. So again, the money follows the child.
Exactly.
But so going back to the point, and something that I've just tossed around a lot, public schools aren't wrong, right? That $7,000 is gone. But the thing that is not lost on me, is that some kids are more expensive to educate than others. What public schools are really worried about is they have the kids that are very expensive to educate, and they lose the ones that cost less because they're using the extra money that doesn't cost for those kids to educate those that just takes more on. I think that's a valid point.
I agree.
Don't you?
Absolutely. I agree that 100%. And we had this conversation, when we got our start back advocating for the school bond and everything like that in Iredell County way back when, we had extensive conversations with the superintendents of both districts. And this was a something that was talked about, even though it was sort of outside the scope of the bond at the time,
Right.
was that you do expect, there are kids who require more resources than others. And, by law, public schools cannot turn anyone away, as it should be. But to be fair, when you're talking about facilities for kids with physical disabilities, kids who maybe have very rough home lives and need mental health counseling, things
Yeah.
like that. Yes, and kids who start with learning disabilities,
Right.
dyslexia, any number of things. It does cost more because they need specialized resources
Right.
that other kids do not.
Right, which we considered what? Health resources, right?
Health.
So this is where it kind of came to a full circle for me, because I do think we need to look at education totally differently. It does cost more for public schools to educate those kids who need mental health or physically health services. It just does. And that is the concern. But every kid in North Carolina either is eligible for Medicaid or private pay insurance. Every one of them.
Paid for by the state.
Paid for by the state or by their family. So, in part of those health plans, there are already psychologists, nurses, all of those services are already paid for through a private pay or a Medicaid pay by the state. So, why are so now that this opportunity scholarship has passed and schools are very nervous about this very real problem, maybe this is the catalyst to help them look at how are they going to deliver those services for a cheaper price or for a different price. Well, if we're already paying for it through health insurance and through Medicaid, then why don't they partner with an Avant or a Blue Cross and Blue Shield or some other type of healthcare provider and bring the services to school through a private-public partnership. Because if you say, let's just say this is, and please feel free to push back on me because it's just an idea, but if you can put a school nurse or a nurse from Novant, I'm just picking Novant, could be anybody. If you put a Novant nurse into a school, then that nurse can bill the private pay insurance or Medicaid for every service that she is, or he is delivering to those kids at no cost to the school. But yet now we are woefully understaffed for school nurses, school psychologists, all of these things. So it seems like this is a really great time to be transformational in the education system. And again, this is just like my back of the napkin pizza box idea. But this may be the time where we can really look at schools, educate the kids, and healthcare, fix their brains and fix their bones.
Yeah.
And be good at what you're doing and do a private partnership to deliver those much needed services that are already being paid for and for a better price and probably better services because you're going to be in a healthcare community. So you're going to have nurses who are around other nurses and not just stuck in with an education system.
I think
that's my idea.
And I think it makes total sense to me because this is one of the things, and I know that you have seen this in your time in elected office, obviously at the state level. I saw it during my time at the local level. It is duplication of services.
Yes.
There are numerous opportunities that can happen between, obviously one of the things that I learned was drilled into me when I first became a municipal commissioner was we don't do schools, we don't do schools, we don't do schools. Totally fair, totally. But that does not mean that we can't partner with schools. That doesn't mean that we can't share resources. We can't share facilities. We can't, partner together to provide a more expansive type of service, a more efficient type of service than what each of us individually can provide on our own. And to be fair, you don't want schools to be in the healthcare business, and you don't want healthcare to be in the educating our kids business.
Right.
So let's let each of them that know their business, that know what it takes, let the schools educate, like you just said, let the private healthcare companies provide for the mental health services, physical health services for these kids, because one knows how to do it, the other doesn't, and to ask either one to get into the other's arena is not fair, and is not going to work out well. So it makes complete and total sense to me.
Now, I'm sure it makes too much sense, and we said it within 15 minutes, so there's got to be 1,000 things wrong.
Oh, I'm sure there's more than 1,000 things wrong with it.
But I think we should really look at those kind of out-of-the-box funding for education, and I do see it as a duplication of service. Every kid in North Carolina has health care. Those who
and
sign
with the passing of Medicaid expansion now, the gap is now closed, so it goes even further.
So
now.
why do we have to pay for a school psychologist through the school system and then also a psychologist through Medicaid? Can't that be combined into one?
I would think so. I would think so.
And if the issue with having children being educated and that costs more to educate, then how do you figure out to make them better? You want better health outcomes anyways, but how do you figure out how to make them, to provide the same services that you need for a lower cost?
Right.
Well, eliminate the duplication of services.
Yeah.
Big idea day.
Big idea day. And here's what I will tell you is that the good thing about you being a legislator is that if there are administrative barriers to this occurring, those can come down.
That's right.
We just need to know what they are. They can come down. What is tougher to break down is the wall that any entity inside of the public sector inevitably puts around it, not to do bad or anything like that, but at his legitimate desire to do good and anything like that, inherently puts a wall up that makes it more difficult for those partnerships.
Professional protectionism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's more cultural than policy. The policies can be fixed. The culture, a little tougher.
Yeah, well, I'm in. Let's do it.
All right, on it.
We need a
we'll
fun
fix
nickname.
it by next show?
Yeah, by next week we're going to get this fixed.
You're listening to We're Just Saying on WSIC News Radio. We'll be right back.
We're Just Saying with NC Senator Vickie Sawyer will return after this short break on the new 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hey everybody, it's Kathy, the GM at Stretch Zone. Are you looking to hit a golf ball farther, increase mobility on the pickleball or tennis court, or just sit more comfortably in a chair? The Stretch Zone method retrains muscles to move more freely with greater range of motion and less effort. This promotes increased flexibility, heightened physical and athletic skills, and increased quality of life. As your body ages, it takes more of an effort to maintain your level of fitness and mobility. If you have lost the ability to perform the activities that you love the most, our programs can help you regain the lifestyle you once enjoyed. Invest in yourself by scheduling an appointment with Stretch Zone today. Our practitioners do all the work and you receive all of the benefit. And your first visit is free. Visit Stretch Zone at 20545 Torrance Chapel Road in Cornelius and 591 River Highway in Mooresville. You will thank yourself. Stretch Zone Cornelius and Mooresville.
And now for a look at your weather forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. Mostly cloudy skies out there this morning, but it will gradually become sunny by the afternoon. The high temperature today is expected to be near 80. Heading through the evening hours, mostly clear skies, and it'll cool off as we get into the overnight hours. Your low temperature tonight, 59. This is your weather forecast from the WSIC Weather Center.
Happening now at Randy Marion Ford in Statesville.
Folks, you know the king of price has always got a deal for you at the Ford store in Statesville. How about 21 model Ford Escapes? These are the SELs. I got all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive. These are starting at $22,880. That's right, $22,880 with over 30 in stock to pick from. Randy Marion Ford Lincoln right here in Statesville, I-77, exit 49B. Come get them while the selection's the best.
RandyMarionFord.com.
Always ready to help you make it fun to work outside. Little Shavers Wood Shop stocks up on all your wood, treated lumber, wood fencing, and all the treatment items to keep them looking great. PVG, paints, and stains, and add in some pine needles and Daddy Pete's mulch and soils, and your landscaping will be the best around. Tools, supplies, and just about all you need is ready for you at Little Shavers. Head on over to Little Shavers, 3301 Salisbury Highway, right in between Statesville, Mooresville, and Moxville. Visit LittleShaversWoodshop.com. That's LILShaversWoodshop.com.
The WSIC Community Yard Sale heard the feedback, and now regular yard sale space is free.
Wow, that's a good message.
Or you can reserve a premium vendor spot for just 50 buckaroos. Premium spots include an on-air mention during a special edition of Home Ad Live. So join us October 28th at the WSIC Community Yard Sale. Free spots provided by Black Automotive Group. Oh, and one more thing. Do you have a lawnmower we could borrow?
Mike here with the All-American Dog Show. Ready for a tail-wagging good time this Sunday? This fun event will be at Robbins Park in Cornelius. Register ahead of time for just $6. Day of will be $10. Visit cornelius.org/PR for more info and to register.
Call now to speak with NC Senator Vickie Sawyer at 844-STUDIO-4. It's We're Just Saying on the new 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Oh, I like this one too.
You like this one?
I do.
And yeah, we're a professional cut in there. Lead in. Welcome back to We're Just Saying on WSIC News Radio with Senator Vickie Sawyer and David. If you'd like to be part of our show, 844-STUDIO-4. We are still streaming live on the WSIC News website, social media pages, YouTube, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn. Hot off the presses during the break, we did receive a text from a distinguished medical worker.
From the front lines?
From the front lines in our medical community.
Okay.
My nurse practitioner wife.
Yes.
She wanted to text to say, first and foremost, you're her favorite.
Aww.
And then second, that she actually agrees with everything that you said. Well done.
Thank you.
Go make it happen.
Okay. Thank you, Amanda Coble. Hug Maggie for me. I mean, Margaret Thatcher. And then
she goes by Maggie, but I don't trust the tone in your voice there. I still think I still think there was sarcasm there.
Speaking of tone and voice, did you hear Nikki Haley get all over
Oh
Vivek last
my
night?
gosh! I mean,
she came off a little rough.
You know what?
You still love her, I know.
Well, yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing. Donald Trump does something like that, and everybody's like, "Oh,
fair.
we love Donald Trump. We love Donald." And the fact that I'm making this point to a woman is, I'm not mansplaining here. Okay, I want this clear. Donald Trump does that, and all the rank and file red meat lovers in our party just jump all over. He's a fighter. He's a fighter. He's a fighter. Nikki Haley does it, and she is shrill, and something else that we can't say, due to FCC regulations on here. But it's such a double standard. It's like you want everybody say, "I want a fighter," but you got a woman up there who's fighting, and it's like, well, I don't know if she came across very good. And it's like, take your pick, folks. Take your pick, right? But I love me some Nikki Haley, so I may be a little riled up about that. But yes, she went off on Vivek, and she wasn't wrong. by the way.
You think he's in with the Chinese?
Well,
Or he gave $500,000 to Hunter Biden? That was
Well,
another
I
thing
mean,
she said.
I think that I have never known Nikki Haley to be someone who didn't say something that was, she generally does
Yeah,
her
that's
research.
true.
But to be fair, I mean, Vivek he's a business guy, and it is very tough to be successful in business at a larger level without doing some
Especially in
business with
technology,
China. Especially in technology
Yeah.
without given that all the raw materials
Yeah.
for the things that technology builds comes
Sure.
from China.
Yeah.
So you're kind of unavoidable, but it is a political campaign. You have to turn those things to where where you need them. But I thought
So-
she did very good.
If you were on stage last night and the last question was, who amongst you should be dropping out? Did you hear about this?
I did not know.
There was a game show type question at the very end. The moderator asked and gave each one of them a board and said, who among you should drop out? And so Chris Christie immediately starts writing. And then DeSantis is like, I'm not answering that question. That is not, we are here to debate the facts. And everybody else said they wouldn't answer the question. Meanwhile, Chris Christie with his
I'm sure Chris
his
Christie.
chubby hands is over there like erasing whatever name he wrote.
That's fantastic. Chris Christie's like, oh, I was waiting for this one.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
See, now, I would have had a lot more respect for Chris Christie if he'd have just said, I'll answer it right here.
I know.
Everybody right here. All these people right
I
here.
think they should all just put Trump because, that's
Exactly. Honestly, if I'm on that stage, I'm right on the board. Trump, I'm saying I'm basically saying everybody except Trump, Haley, and DeSantis.
Okay.
Like no one else up there has a remote chance of winning. Those are really the only three that have a remote chance of winning. Everybody else, get out.
Yeah.
Just get out. But no, I thought it was good. But you before the break we were
We're
talking
talking about winners
education
and losers.
funding and everything like that. But also education funding, not just raises and stuff like that for teachers. Also some money for athletic fields in Iredell County.
Yes. So we got some winners coming in. So I'm very grateful that we were able to get some money for both Mooresville Graded School District for their athletic field. That was my big thing. I went it for athletics, and also which is something we're going to kind of lead into at the end of the
for our rated
show.
X segment.
For our rated X section. I mean, I think the accuser committed the crime on this one. I may have mean tweeted.
You mean tweeted?
A little bit.
Well, I mean,
we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. But if you mean tweeted, I think it's probably fantastic.
But it was factual. Okay, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. But so primarily for the baseball and softball fields, and also for Iredell Statesville School. Again, hopefully they focus on the baseball and softball fields as an old softball player.
Well, yeah.
Of course.
Of course.
And softball. So if you hear my voice and you're on those committees, make sure we love on some softball. Kidding. But yeah, so for South, North, and West Iredell. So hopefully the county commissioners can put some more money in and we can upgrade all the athletic fields. Because athletics are important to education because a lot of times those kids who are on the cusp who may not really care about, the school, they really care about Friday Night Lights.
Yes, they do.
They love coming to school so they can go play ball. And so that's just such a big, enriching experience. And oftentimes counties have to overlook or underfund their athletic facilities because they have other educational needs. So I'm just grateful that was in the budget.
Absolutely. And another significant athletic upgrade coming to our alma mater, UNC Charlotte, go Niners. $25 million for the stadium expansion matched by a private donation of another $25 million from Smokey Bissell.
Yeah.
So total of $50 million going into that stadium renovation, which I, for one, think is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was really cool to see that.
Yeah.
And really cool to see, a private donor, because one of the things that Charlotte has struggled with to date is, those folks, those people who may not be have not gone to UNC Charlotte. I mean, it's still a relatively young university in comparison to the other schools inside the system. And so a lot of times building that private successful donor base with the kind of means to give the way Smokey Bissell did, it's tough.
Yeah.
And to see that happen now, I mean, coming from when, I was there and you were there, light years difference between the campus experience at UNC Charlotte now than when you and I were there.
So when you and I were there, do you remember we used to have computer labs at the bottom of the
dorms?
Yes. And they were like the green screen and a floppy disk and You had to go down there and actually schedule a time
Well,
to.
you had to schedule a time, but I
Uh-huh.
still remember like my first exposure to the internet at all was in the computer lab at UNC Charlotte. And
Really?
yeah, I had never been on the internet before until I went to college.
Yeah.
Which, for those of you listening who are younger than me,
Yeah.
which I don't know that our audience really skews much younger than me,
Eh,
but
you never know.
there might be
You
one or
never
two.
know.
There might be
Hopefully
one or
our
two.
kids listen.
No, my kids don't.
Oh,
My
okay.
kids don't.
Yeah.
But my wife is younger than me, so she
There you
qualifies.
go. Okay, good.
But my first exposure to the internet was the
Mm-hmm.
computer labs, and then my first exposure to online gaming was in the computer labs because we could take Age of Empires and take it to the computer lab, and then we could network them all together, and you could play. And so the computer labs we turned into the gaming labs, which
Right.
incidentally Charlotte
That's
now
a
has
good
a
lead-in.
fantastic esports
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
Also got some money
Yeah.
in the state budget, so a lot of good quality stuff there for places that are near and dear to us.
And you actually developed that love of the internet into a career with your banking career in IT and doing systems development.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, however we can grab.
Wasn't quite as fun, but the
Yeah.
Age of Empires in the computer lab. But it was, it
But
was
there was
close.
a correlation.
There was a correlation.
I do want to note too about the state budget because I do represent Cornelius. We were able to get some money in there for Cornelius for some infrastructure, $3 million for some infrastructure, $500,000 for the museum. But we always hear that Raleigh hates Mecklenburg County,
Mhm.
right? We hear that. I don't know that that's necessarily true. So when I was looking at budget appropriations, the total amount for just kind of like for Mecklenburg County coming out of Raleigh is about $140 million coming into Mecklenburg County from the North Carolina state budget.
That's a fairly big number.
Yeah. So there's this misnomer that, Republicans bleed out Democrats and we're not, investing in the areas that, are thriving. But there is a significant amount of investment. Now, this is without transportation projects that we're investing in, those kind of things. So I just want to make a shout out that sometimes perception and reality and numbers matter.
Yeah.
Going into our mean tweet.
And talk a little bit
soon.
about in transportation was something that you mentioned. So transportation funding, generally, you all deal with that separately
Yep.
outside of just the general budget, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So remember, we did a sales tax transfer. If I said
Well
that
done.
really fast, it was
Enunciate it.
it was not going good. So in other words, about up to 6% of the money that's collected through sales tax. That's every time you pay $1, just with 7.25% goes in sales tax. We are doing a transfer over to transportation. So that's about the extent of how much the general budget deals with transportation. Otherwise, it's gas tax, registration fees, money from the federal government, which comes from gas tax.
Mhm.
That's why my focus has been the gas
The
tax
gas tax.
for so long. So yeah, it's a whole different ballgame in there. Now, there's what we do is we appropriate within that budget when those monies comes in how it's spent. But other than that, it's not like we can levy a new tax or anything else like that. Well, actually, we did, but I mean, it's just a whole separate function of the general fund.
But it's not good. But the budget itself is more about. So do you all? And this is for my own curiosity.
Uh-huh.
You all basically fund DOT for the road projects that they recommend, or is that like
Oh.
a separate highway bill type thing? Like you fund DOT
Yeah.
and then you fund a separate thing.
So remember, they fund themselves, and there's a highway fund and a highway
Theoretically.
trust fund. And the way I remember that's two buckets of money. And the way I remember the difference is you trust the highway fund to build your roads. So
Ah,
and the other one is general maintenance, so the highway fund,
got it.
and some stuff from airports and things like that. So under those two buckets is how all the funding is. So they intake the money, they divide them into two buckets, and there's buckets in there. And some of those buckets under the Highway Trust Fund is called the State Transportation Improvement Plan, or the STIP. That's that 10-year plan that says, hey, exit 28 is coming in, or exit 26 is coming in, but it's not going to come in for 10 years. So that's that construction plan.
Got it. And then also one last item, local interest, the Statesville Airport.
Yes.
Some additional
It's a big
funding for
deal.
the Statesville Airport. It's a huge deal. Statesville Airport uniquely positioned because it doesn't share airspace with Charlotte. And so the expanding up there, I mean, some exciting things going on at the Statesville Airport.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And that's a big thing because as Charlotte Airport continues to expand, they're basically pushing out their general aviation, which means not commercial aviation. And so the Concord is full, right?
Yeah.
And so they need to go somewhere, and Statesville's the next logical spot. Statesville has the only east-west runway for that type of in our area. So that's a good thing. So you don't have to hit winds on coming in.
Absolutely.
See, and it doesn't share airspace with Charlotte, so it actually gets controlled out of the Atlanta tower. So if you're a pilot and you're coming in, you have a much easier time landing in Statesville than you would in Concord.
Very nice.
So
We'll be
come
right back
to
after the break.
Statesville.
More We're Just Saying with NC Senator Vickie Sawyer is coming up on the new 1059 100.7 WSIC.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. This Friday, the Steel Wheels are performing at Kane Center for the Arts in Cornelius. Come listen to the storytelling abilities of the Steel Wheels through Americana and folk music. Doors open at 7 and the show starts at 8. The Steel Wheels, this Friday, canearts.org. That's CAIN arts.org. Start your engines, racing fans. The Bank of America Roval 400 is back to Charlotte. Sunday, October 8th, starting at 2 p.m. The Bank of America Roval 400 at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Get your tickets before it's too late. Visit charlottemotorspeedway.com. No time to get to the apple picking at Kerrigan Farms? Apple picking ends September 30th. But you have your chance to go pumpkin picking. Starting September 30th, you can experience the pumpkin patch at Kerrigan Farms. Book your experience now at kerriganfarms.com. The All-American Dog Show is this Sunday in Cornelius, 2 until 5 p.m. Bring your furry friends with you. Come find out who has the fluffiest coat and see the cutest puppy in all of Cornelius. And be sure to come by the WSIC tent at the All-American Dog Show happening at Robbins Park in Cornelius this Sunday. For more info, visit cornelius.org. Have an event you would like to tell people about? Yard sales, estate sales, and everything in between? Visit WSICnews.com and click on events to submit your event today.
The Renaissance Festival is back. Saturdays and Sundays, September 30th through November 19th. Jousting, knights, mermaids, fairies, dragons. Oh my! Tickets available online only at renfestinfo.com while supplies last.
And now for a look at your weather forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. Mostly cloudy skies out there this morning, but it will gradually become sunny by the afternoon. The high temperature today is expected to be near 80. Heading through the evening hours, mostly clear skies, and it'll cool off as we get into the overnight hours. Your low temperature tonight, 59. This is your weather forecast from the WSIC Weather Center.
We're Just Saying continues now. Here's your host, NC Senator Vickie Sawyer, on the new 1059 100.7 WSIC.
Little 80s rock feel
It's
there.
a little Rush Limbaugh feel, didn't it?
It did a little bit too.
yeah.
I mean, we're pulling those kind of ratings now, from what I hear. Well, last week we did. Welcome back to We're Just Saying with Senator Vickie
That's
Sawyer
funny.
and David. If you'd like to be part of our show, 844 Studio 4. We are still streaming live on the WSIC News website, Facebook page, X, formerly known as Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And
Yes.
and for those who do not watch us online, I do have to read that off the paper.
Okay.
Because I never can get it right.
Well, let's just say we're everywhere.
We're everywhere.
We're
Well,
everywhere.
look at you. You're just consolidating everything
Yeah.
into streamlined messaging today.
I'm trying to bring up the ratings because I am a little, worried about last week. Marcus McHenry,
you've brought your game up today.
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
know.
tell you, you have stepped your game up. I don't know if it'll be enough, but we'll see.
You ready for a
What-
rated X?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely ready for our rated X. So for those who are not familiar, a couple of weeks ago we started the rated X segment on our. This is where on our show. This is where we read out mean tweets that have been directed at our good senator based off things she said. But today it looks like there's some mean tweets. You reversed the script this week.
I did. I reversed the script. I did.
Well, obviously, but I think people understand, given that anyone who's listening to the show understands that the target of said tweet more than deserved it. But you got hit up out. You got clapped back at by the High School Athletic Association, your old nemesis.
Which I'm pretty sure they listened to the show because when I called in last week about the budget, I had mentioned how they had started a new association and had moved over just enough money to not be investigated by by us or the Attorney General's office. And guess what happened on Monday?
What?
They did a press release talking about their new organization.
Yep. I'd say it's safe bet that this show is being monitored by them these days.
Well, so in that vein, let me just go ahead and say, so there's this, one of my friends and co-senators, I'm trying to say colleague, Todd Johnson, he went on a sports report that's actually out of Charlotte Observer. You can go online and see that. I think it's called Prep Talks. And during that, the High School Athletic Association put up this graph and said that they'd returned over like $22 million to schools. Now, I've been looking at their 990s, their audited financial statements for the past 3 years. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not an accountant, but I never saw that.
Yeah.
Like oh my God, am I wrong? Like
Yeah.
I just started stressing like, wait a minute, where are they getting these numbers from? So then I pulled up the latest 990s that I'd asked them to give me, which 21, 22, I think. And I saw where they got their numbers from.
Where did they get them?
Well, let's go back to the mean tweet part.
Okay.
So there was a tweet that said $22,895,609.30. Don't forget the 30 cents. That's how much money the High School Athletic Association has given back to member schools since it separated from UNC in 2010. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now remember, they only gave away $40,500 in scholarships a couple years ago.
Okay.
So how's
Yeah.
like where's the math?
Yeah,
I
how
know
does
they're
that
not
shape
making
up?
this up, right?
Yeah.
I know they're not making it up. But then it goes on to say, SB 42, which is Senate Bill 452, prevents the association and foundation from providing grants and scholarships.
So to be clear, you all wrote a bill that prevented them from doing what they haven't been doing to begin with.
Right. So he was assuming that
Science.
that they wouldn't be able to. The bill will not be. So the intent of the tweet is that we are going to rob schools of $22 million in funding for athletics. So I was like,
So
wait a minute.
how do you get to that?
Wait a minute. So this was my moment. Okay, this was my mean tweet back, and my mean tweet back was, "Are you referencing the partial reimbursement for travel expenses to schools to regional and state playoff games, while the High School Athletic Association sold preferred vendor status and corporate sponsorship to those games, all while charging families and spectators full ticket price?"
Mm-hmm.
I was a little angry.
Yeah, a little. I can honestly, I can hear the
Yeah.
going in through your chair right there. I think there's some dents there in the iPhone cover.
Yes, there is. I had to rechange. I had to like get my screensaver off of there and put another one on. But it was like, you are completely misrepresenting this. So I pulled up their 990s. And for everybody else, that's a publicly available tax document for any 501c3 or nonprofit charitable organization. You can go online and look at them. So this is not, inside baseball information. This is something you can pull down. So what he's talking about, or what they're reporting, that is legitimately expenses that teams have to endure in order to go play at playoff games.
So in order to attend the events that the High School Athletic Association has them come to,
right?
These are their, and then we say, oh, we're going to give you a little bit of that back,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
And then we're going to keep all this ticket revenue
Yeah.
and all this vendor revenue.
Oh, you know what? They didn't keep all the ticket revenue. Let me talk about that. So they got $1.7 million in gate receipts in this, year 2021, 22. They shared back $288,000 of that with the schools.
Guys, at some point you're doing it wrong, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, they're already doing it wrong, but if you're going to battle back against the light being shined on your practices,
don't lie,
and do it in honest. I mean, well, these are like the death rolls, right? It's like you got nothing else to do,
right?
So it's like, let's put this out there and let's see if we can make people buy it,
right? And it's like, that is so false. Yes, you gave money to schools, but you reimbursed their expenses and you made money off of those schools. Now, they did give scholarships, right? In this year, there was 39 scholarships given to individual students for a total of like $40,500. They did give 2 coaches awards away.
Oh, did they? Well,
yeah,
that was good of them.
Total $5,000.
Wow.
Now, wait a minute. Now, I will say that something that is missed, and they do give grants, like up to, I think, $4,500 or $5,000 back to schools. But when we investigated that, you know which schools actually got all the grants?
What?
The wealthy ones that can afford grant writers or have moms and dads who do it as a business. So I'm going to say the high school that's out in, rural North Carolina, that the coach is also the field linesman who's also cuts the grass on Saturdays, who's doing a fundraiser for popcorn to make sure they have helmets. That guy doesn't have time to sit down and write a grant.
Yeah.
But it's just, and so really what happened is that we saw the High School Athletic Association, what little money they were giving back to schools, were given back to those who didn't need it.
Yeah.
It was like, so the idea is that how about instead of taking $1 and giving some schools back 40 cents, how about just take 40 cents?
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
They don't need to be in the grant making business. They need to
don't.
make sure. So the high school athletics needs to be administered by the High School Athletic Association. In other words, they do a really good job of making the trains or the games run on time. That's what they do. But the state of North Carolina, we're the ones who are responsible for the passengers on those trains. We're the ones who are responsible to say who gets on and who gets off, not them.
Right.
And that's all this is. It's a third-party group that is beloved, I understand, but they are a company. Well, you know, that's the thing.
Who beloves them?
I don't know anymore. So we were talking amongst some folks who are elected in the Senate, and like we're not getting any mad emails about High School Athletic Association. In fact, we're getting the opposite. We're getting way to go.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Yeah, thank you.
I remember when you first started this, when it all started, and for people who forget, all of this started because of a school in Iredell County that had had an Anson County school that had basically had a player they ruled ineligible, and so isn't that how all this started?
Yeah, so there was Anson County, which is Wadesboro area. They had some post-game ejections that disallowed that school to continue off in the playoffs, and so the senator down there had asked for, hey, can you please look at this again? So it was really trying to help a minority school trying to get to the playoffs because they got kicked out for a fight that happened on both sides. That's really how it all started.
Right. And from there, it just sort of snowballed. But at some point in time, here's my thing. When you see this level of, actions, and there's two explanations for it. It is incompetence or it is corruption. And neither of those are good, okay? You are an administrative function that basically is there, like you said, to make sure the trains run on time. The high schools and the sports are the product. The parents and the teachers are the fans.
That's right.
And you should not be profiting off of that, especially not to the tune. Now, operationally speaking, yes, make your be able to fund your operations. But the fact that you were able to accumulate $40 million into your bank account simply when your entire job is to make sure the trains run on time, that is a problem.
Right.
And the fact that people are just now looking at it. Right, it's just now risen to the level when people have raised enough concerns, and I remember when this started, you had athletic directors calling you, coaches calling you, and saying, "Please don't use my name.
That's right.
Please don't tell anyone I called you," because it's like there will be retribution towards these people. They are legitimately scared of it because this organization literally holds these schools' sports fates in their hand. These kids who are putting in their heart and souls on these fields and on these courts, they literally have their futures in their hands, and they can snap them back in a heartbeat in retribution for somebody speaking out.
Absolutely. I mean, so what the bill does, and we did get it passed, and hopefully the governor will sign into law or allow it to become law, is it just basically says that High School Athletic Association, do what you're good at. Make sure the trains run on time. Everything else, it falls under the purview of the state and the elected state superintendent, not the appointed school board. It wasn't under the state. The school board had this authority all along. They just kind of gave it over to the athletic association, and they never held them accountable until we started looking. And so now we realize that this is such an important fabric of our school community that really should have someone who's elected to oversee that, because we need someone who's directly accountable to the people, because these are the people's schools.
No, 100%. Well, big plans for the weekend?
No.
Ball is in the air. Sitting on your porch and enjoy the weather.
Yeah, we have the Walk for Recovery in Iredell County at the Troutman ESC. Debbie Page and those folks have done a really good job. They were here last week talking about it. Make sure to come out and see them. And then otherwise, just enjoying fall weather. It's sweater weather.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody, for being part of our show today. We will be back next week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
The new 105.9, 100.7 WSIC, Statesville, Mooresville, North Charlotte.